Yes, good evening all. So I've asked Eshani to join us today. All right, so she has earlier been with us and she was already selected. Then this year she worked. I have called her in particular because no, I don't want you to discuss a strategy or anything like that. You already have a strategy in place. But one thing that was very good about her was she was very extremely methodical, which means that there are some students who will clear this exam and there are some students who will predictably clear this exam. There is a difference between the two of them, which means that some people, you don't know whether they will get a 5 rank or 500 rank, or they will not be in the list at all. So that's not. And there are some students who are picking up everything, all right? And they will do it. So Eshani was one of them who picked up everything and would make sure that she will follow. So I want you to learn from her. So please give a big hand to Eshani and please welcome her. So, very warm welcome. I will leave the mantle of the class to you now.
Hello everyone, good afternoon, good evening. How are you feeling? Okay, are you writing 24 or 25? 24? Okay, so I'm here. I'll just share my experience very briefly to you. But I really want you to ask your deepest doubts, your questions. I will tell you all the mistakes I made to save you a lot of times. And let's just hope that we don't give a lot of re-attempts. So please be very free to ask your questions on anxiety, maybe the doubt in the exam, fear of failure and whatnot. We've all been through. I'm on this side of the stage, but I have sat there just like you, just maybe until the results came out also. Is that okay? So can we have a nice interactive session also? Any doubts on prelims mains interview? I'm here to clarify. So I started in 2019 and I'm a computer science engineer. And like all engineers, we also choose to do different things in engineering. And I took up the civil services exam in 2020, but I failed my first prelims. And that was such an important failure because all my strategy until that prelims was completely flawed. And we will talk a bit more about why I failed the prelims because my approach was completely wrong. My idea of the exam was so flawed. I found out only in the 2 hours of prelims that my approach was completely futile. So the problems you face, have you given prelims before? Anyone who's given an attempt? All of you have. So in my unsuccessful prelims, I did not manage time well. And we all know time is gold in this exam. Can we agree on that? So I didn't manage my time well. If I did not know a question, I would start panicking much more, and I would then that tension would percolate in all exam, in all the questions coming forth. These were some of the problems I faced in my prelims. And then I went back, I did this exercise. I took the entire set B question paper. And please recall, please remember this, that I took a post-it and I would write from scratch to finish. In question 36, I felt so stressed when I saw this and I could recall this is this. So I made an entire paragraph on that. So I would always go back to that and repeat it in every prelims I've given till now. I've given 4 prelims. So I failed my first and every 3 I could go on. What I'm trying to say is we get caught in so much external noise, the sources, the toppers, the peer group, kya karna, kya nahi karna. But have you thought why you could not do something properly? Can anyone tell you that your strategy should be like mine? Because we all have the same sources, but we all have different journeys because we're different people, right? So in this exam, if you ever fail in any round, prelims or mains, always go very internal to look at your mistakes very well. So in my failed prelims, I had not seen the PYQs very well. Have you all seen PYQs? What do you mean when I say, have you seen PYQs? Is it just seeing the previous year questions? Is it noting down the content? Okay, iska answer A hai, iska answer B hai. Do you think that's the way? Can anyone tell me, if you think proudly you have done PYQs very well, what do you think you have done? Anyone? It could be right. It's not a trick question, but can someone tell me, can you tell me? PYQs dekhe aapne? How have you prepared PYQs? Okay. The question. So she's saying that she sees how UPSC has framed the question, right? Anything else? Anyone else? Everyone was nodding when I said, have you seen PYQs? Yes. 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 So he's saying you. So he's saying he saw the questions and also the solutions क्योंकि आपका जो answer होता है बाकी options का भी question आ सकता है. So in my first prelims I did not do this at all. I thought seeing PYQs meant just seeing the content, the answer of something, and I would think हाँ ये आ गया तो मैं ये करूँगी. But do you really think a competitive exam will be so simple? So what does it mean to see PYQs? It means you should understand the core themes which keep getting repeated in the exams and the mindset of the person creating. When they ask you a question on architecture or Akbar, they are not asking you factoids. They're asking you the core concept. So you should know that at the time of Akbar, there was a lot of cultural development, there was good administration. Now this is conceptual clarity. And this is what PYQs give you. So please go back again, see the PYQs chapter wise and see science and tech, history, economics, what they're asking. Your PYQs give you a core into this examination. So that was one thing I would like to tell you. Let's go back and see PYQ once more. Now, second thing is when you see the prelims paper, do you have a strategy right now how you would go by the paper? Would you do easy questions or think about it? You sit in the morning that day in the examination, you open the paper. Do we all get fearful? We're all very anxious. Is it not? You don't know what they're going to ask even if you're given prelims before. But the most important thing you should tell yourself is I will manage my time very well in 2 hours. I should have seen all the questions. I should have not done the ones I have no idea about because we are not going to be very random in our papers, aren't we? So let me think about this way. So in my prelims strategy, my successful prelims strategy, I did it in iterations. You all following what I'm saying? Because I'm sure that's a very popular strategy. So I would see quickly, I would search for polity, modern history, and economics. And a lot of these questions which are very much close to what I've revised, right? In the coming few days, we will only revise important static themes. So I would search for polity. I would say, yes, I'm marking my top 30, 20 questions in the 45 minutes I have had. And this is your score differentiator. If you are going wrong in spectrum, modern history, in polity, in a lot of your basics, you are very much going to lose out the race. Nobody will make a mistake in fundamental rights or DPSP tomorrow. Does that make sense? Because this is the only controllable in the exam that we can predict some static syllabus, right? So I would do my first iteration and then I would take a small 1-minute break and now you start your rationalizing and elimination of the options. And I would again search topics in which I think I could eliminate between two and I would keep them aside. And then it's a game of your deduction, what you're choosing at the end of it, right? So 1.5 hours, I would finish about 55 to 60 questions. And now there are these questions where you cannot eliminate even two. Do you also, you following what I'm saying? Is this a very similar strategy? So I would now deduce some one so option I can remove and I would have 3 in them. And this is where your PYQs give you a very nice map. Maybe a PYQ taught me that there are some important areas of focus and I will mark that. Maybe some PYQ or mock practice I have deduced it differently and I would mark that. Because in my experience, I have always done above 80 questions. We can also talk about how many we should do, but I have done above 80 generally. Because I was a bit of a risk taker and I had to do a bit more to cover that risk. Now, we all do iterations, right? But there is a reason why some of us fail and some of us don't. Do you all agree? So everyone is doing iterations in this? Like, आप एक बार देखते हो, फिर वापस देखते हो. Can someone tell me why you are not clearing then? Why some of us clear and some of us don't? Why do some of us clear the exam and some of us don't, even if we're doing a very similar strategy? Can you tell me? Does anyone want to answer?
Of it, but someone don't get the like they
of the
think
questions?
contradict to the UPSC how they think, that's why they got wrong, and someone thinks the way UPSC thinks.
Yeah, so you're saying some of them get the knack of the question paper and some of them don't. So they get carried away by something else. So that is one reason. Another thing, anyone else? Yes. She said the one who maintains a calm throughout the paper. Anyone else? Yes, not doing basic static. Do you know the articles of DPSP and fundamental rights? Yes? Yes. You should have, yeah. So what she's saying is she took risks, not she, but someone would have taken risks in the wrong places. They would have attempted something they should not have attempted. Now, this clarity of thought is very important for you throughout the examination. If you are not going back to your mocks and seeing why your thought process was wrong, you are not going to change your approach at all. If you want to clear this exam, I have given 4 attempts. It has not, and no attempt has been easy to the next, because I failed prelims, then I failed mains, then I did interview, and again for the interview. So the point being, if you keep the same wrong strategy and approach, you will not clear the exam. If you ask people, is there a secret book, a secret strategy? No. If you are prepared to change your approach if things go wrong, then you can easily clear the examination. So there's no secret book, there's nothing, but you should change your approach. So every mock gives you that opportunity. Why did you go wrong in a particular question? Can I think it differently? So your solution PDF is not to take down and note down everything and have such a fat notebook. You should think, why was I not starting my thinking in this particular way? Next mock, you will apply the same thought process. Again, it will go wrong. You will be massively confused, and then you can move on. If you are confused in this exam with your strategy or approach, you're on the right path, actually. If you don't know how do I approach something and then you go wrong, it's a very good thing, right? So my point is, please look at PYQs again today, and have you really understood why this question is coming? And always go back to your mocks and make a good note of the approach. This is what I wanted to tell you. This is the prelim-centric approach. Now I'm open to your questions on anything that you want to ask further on prelims, strategy or book list, and then we can move on to mains and other topics. This is a good time for you to ask questions on prelims, how you're going to approach 24, what you should be doing maybe in the last 60 days. Anyone? It's an open session. I'm sure you all have approaches, yes? How did I do CSAT paper? The time distribution? Okay. So CSAT has been a googly, and are you worried about CSAT, everyone? Yes? Don't be worried. Why? Because CSAT is testing your conceptual clarity. Okay, the process of CSAT is like this. Every topic, ratio, proportion, profit and loss or whatever, has always a basic concept, right? And they have particular formulae. Now, whatever be the type of question paper, this is something that they will be testing. Now, my approach was to not touch those topics in the paper where I do not know how to even do the question. We'll come to the time management part of it, but I would quickly open the CSAT paper and I would search questions which were very strong. I like number systems. I could do ratio proportion. So I would find these questions. Now, you don't get more marks for a very tough question. So I thought I would focus more on accuracy and I would go with it. Now, if you are spending more than 2.5-3 minutes to become a mathematician there, it's a colossal waste, right? So my strategy, I would advise you that till the prelims, please focus on your basic syllabus. Look at the concepts first. Memorize a formula and practice them. Perhaps, okay, keep repeating the same questions that you think you are strong in. Search for them in the paper and quickly do it and get the accuracy part. Now, there is an English part and there is a mathematics part as well. Some people like to do them together. They like to follow the question. They like to do 4 and plus 2 plus English plus maths. But I would do all maths in an hour and all English in an hour. This has really helped me in my approach because I could slot my thinking within the 2 hours and I never had a time problem as well. Now, if you have left a question in this strategy, in my strategy, if I've left a maths question, I would never go back to it and again try it again because I knew it's hard. I would not know the first 3-4 steps. I will not waste my time. CSAT appears a bit demonic, but it is very doable. If you just go home today and practice your formulae, your concepts, and repeat the same practice questions, and then give a good mock and figure out your strategy. This was my approach. Anyone else? Yes? You can be loud, it's okay.
It's mostly about PYQs. I think we always harp on the importance of PYQs. I personally have not been able to get a very conclusive answer on what exactly is the way that we derive value out of PYQs. So, couple of things. Either I can, so for example, if I'm making notes, I can use that as a guidance on what exactly is being covered. Second is that if I've covered a particular topic, I can just use them as a reflection of whether I know certain things or not. I'm not able to figure out how do I use that as a like a guiding source of what exactly.
So I will elaborate a bit more on that. Now, when you analyze PYQs, you should slot it topic wise. If you see PYQs of modern history, you will know that they're asking charter acts, they're asking tribal revolts, they're asking administration, they're asking pre-1850, the indigo plantation, the railway question sort of thing. So now you will know these are the topics of focus. In history, they can only ask you factual questions. So you don't have to really think very differently in this. So your analysis of modern history is these are the important topics. Now, if you see science and tech topics, you can't predict science and tech in current affairs. But PYQs will tell you that the applications are many. Answers to answers to science and tech will be quite diverse. So they don't ask you technologies which are narrow. You get what I'm saying? And they use opposite keywords, for example, like in blockchain question, the NFT question. So this is how you analyze the vocabulary in science and tech. If you move on to economics, you will know, even though we don't have a set economics workbook or a textbook, you will know that there are 8 to 10 themes which keep repeating every year. Has to be inflation, bank rate, repo rate, something on rupee crisis, and they will ask the same concept in different ways. So economics is more conceptual understanding of this, and environment is more maps. And you will realize that maps are not coming from different and obscure continents, but from things in news. So this is the PYQ analysis. Apart from looking at solutions, apart from looking at content, you have to really dig deep and interpret subjectively as a subject. So maybe you can practice it today, but this is one, I've given you a small hint as to how you can do so. Yeah.
Like a particular example that I have. Yesterday I was solving something related to environment, and couple of questions in the last 2 years, not like very frequently, but for example, were about they give 4 particular species of animals, aquatic species, and they wanted us to figure out what is the odd one. So one particular, like if it's say let's about pollution, I have couple of like initiatives, and I know that I have to study just them. In history, I know what to bottle down.
Yeah.
But for example, say things in question like give me an order out of these species. I wouldn't, because I'm not from like say the biology background, I wouldn't know where to stop in terms of like the species I have to study, the kingdom that I have to
So
study.
I want to talk a bit about that. So she mentioned that you shouldn't take risks which are not giving you rewards. So if out of these options you have no idea what should be the odd one out, you will not attempt this question at all. You will instead get +2 on a polity question and leave this. You get what I'm saying? So when you're analyzing the PYQs, always map your controllables. I think in environment, what you can map is things like the maps that they're asking you species, they're asking you new technology, they're asking you agriculture. These are the things you can do. If there's a question, I would generally not have done such questions, but I cannot eliminate even one. And it's completely okay. This is why we do iterations, because as the iterations move on, you get riskier, but you don't get more careless, right? So this is maybe some way I can help you.
Questions like these, focusing on the so-called tricks as such will help more than covering, like using them to cover syllabus.
See, I think the last year's paper has shown that we cannot apply tricks, right? We cannot eliminate or whatever tricks be in the market, but I think the core areas of focus won't change. You did have a question on rivers, you had a question on trees and all of that. So let's try to focus on controllables like NCRTs and PYQs and keep that very set. So that is your base, and then we can add on other logical reasoning questions also. Okay. Anyone else?
Because like all of us have attempted the exam earlier and not cleared it, so that anxiety is still there. Like, I don't know, despite performing good here, will I be able to replicate that in the actual exam? Because I don't know
In
what.
the mocks, you mean?
Yeah, in the mocks, in the general SFG tests.
Yeah.
But like that feeling that what if everything happens the same, like I repeat the same
but
mistakes
that's a very
again.
valid problem, because you so-called failed once, you think you can it can happen again. But I met someone few days back and she had failed 3 prelims. She went in for the 4th and now she's an IAS. So you realize if she had this Hamlet's doubt just before entering the exam, she would not have done well. So always remember, your new attempt has nothing to do with your past attempt. If I were to write this exam again, I may not even get the same rank. The point is that your past attempts have no bearing, but you should go with the confidence that you have failed, you have overcome your mistakes, and you will not repeat them again. Your armors are things like your PYQs, your errors, your quick notes, and that is the only thing you can predict in the examination. So please shed all your hesitations. I was in your place because I had failed my first prelims, but I went with the second prelims with all hope कि मेरा हो जाएगा, हो जाना चाहिए, because I've done PYQs, I've overcome the mistakes. So if you have that confidence, you will replicate whatever you have done over the years. Remember the process though.
One more thing, ma'am. There are like a group of people who clear prelims every year, and there is a group of people who, despite trying to like rectifying their mistakes, they don't clear the exam. Some people clear it with just 4 or 5 days of revision. Those who like go to the interview stage and not clear. So like I am not able to figure out what is the differentiating factor. Like it looks like there is a feel of the examination which you have to crack. I'm not sure how to do that.
So in my first failed prelims, my feel was completely wrong. I thought it's a knowledge exam. I thought if I studied more hours a day, I would clear it better, but that was clearly not the case. So I think those who clear the exam much easily have a very good idea of how to differentiate right option from the wrong. They don't get confused. Okay, what should I be doing? How should I approach something? Their mind is so clear about every question. Try to get that clarity in your preparation for everything from here on, and then it's possible. Anyone there? Yes?
Number of questions to be attempted.
So I knew my iterative approach was a bit risky because my last iterations, I would want to push it further. And given how competitive the exam is, I knew my first iteration, I would do those questions correctly. Polity, Lakshmikant and all of that should not be wrong. But since I was doing a bit more riskier questions in my last iteration, I would always tell myself, I would not do less than 80. But you cannot decide this until you see the paper. Every time I opened the paper, I did change. Should I do less than 80 or more? But in my mocks, I would try to make that risky decision. So you cannot pre-decide the number of questions. But if you know more, please keep your static correctly. And then if you're riskier, try to take calculative risks. Yes? Okay. So here on, you should start studying important themes, prioritize them, and then move on. If you have polity revision, always do fundamental rights, DPSP, parliament chapter, center-state relations. You will always have a question on parliament, fundamental rights, for example. So your PYQs will tell you the important topics. If you go to environment, always see your tiger reserve, mapping. This can come repeatedly. If you see modern history, see your charter acts. So you are not doing start to finish. You're not studying from scratch. You will take up themes and you will do that without a doubt. So keep half of your day for static syllabus only. And then maybe the later half, on some days you can revise your current affairs that you've already done beforehand. But please go theme-wise, the importance of the subjects. That will help you more.
Like we don't have a proper source for it. We don't know where our questions come, like completely leave it or how to cover them, where to cover them.
In the, you mean the preparation phase also?
Yes, of current affairs.
So current affairs is such an enigma because we really can't predict what's going to come completely. And since you can't control this in the exam, worry very less about it. The only thing you should be doing is reading newspapers because you get an idea about the news, and please go to current affairs magazines or whatever sources you have. Now, when you study a current affairs magazine, you are not reading from the first line to the end. Again, you will go to PYQs and you will see, should I study the statistics in this? Should I study the name of some person in this? What should I be studying? Technology. So you will do very selective study of even current affairs magazines. And then this you will revise in the 40 days, whatever you've done over the past. So what you can't control from the paper, from the magazines, it's completely okay. If you don't know, others also may not know. So but the advantage of reading current affairs, magazines and newspapers is that you get a good idea about what's happening and you can eliminate in some other topic related to the same. That's the advantage that happens.
In the last 10 days, there are four things that we have to do. One is static things, one is PYQ, one is CSAT practice, and another thing is that current affairs notes that we have made, and all that things we have done. So what was your priority in last 10 days or your last revision round?
So in my 10 days, I made sure I will revise what I already knew, what I already was very confident in, because what you know, you should be 100% in that. So in my leading 10 days, I would revise important topics like Parliament chapter, Buddhism chapter, or something on maps, on Tiger Reserve. So I would pick and choose. 40 days, you revise a lot of things. In 10 days, you become even more microscopic. So I did that in my 10 days. And CSAT, I would revise my formulae. I wouldn't do a lot of 2-hour papers by then, but I would revise my formulae, such as the clock chapter or calendar, for example. So I would see the formulae. And current affairs became very little as the days came closer, because I would start more in the 40 days and then reduce. So if you see a pattern, I'm trying to fill my leading week of the prelims with things I knew really well. Very boring activity, but I would continue to do it. Reading the same topics I've done before. PYQs and my errors in mocks. If I made an error in a mock, like seeing the not correct to correct, and then I missed out on articles, so I would do that also a bit more diligently. So focusing on static and your past mistakes, you'll be very much prepared in the real exam. So newspapers won't be helpful in content generally, because the news, they say you should stop current affairs a month or two before the examination, but it's always good to keep a cursory practice. Just skim through the paper and keep in touch with the news, because if you're writing mains, a lot of this will continue for the mains also. But you don't have to be very diligent with paper and current affairs a month before the exam. And like I was telling him, leading to the prelims, you should only be revising what you already know, what you're already very confident in. It's a placebo perhaps, but you should not make mistakes in polity, for fundamental rights in the real examination. So skim through the papers if you have time to be continuous with the current affairs topics, but focus on static a bit more.
Hello. Yes, ma'am. I wanted to ask about, like, what was your way to revise? Like right now, I am taking a lot of time to revise the same stuff again and again. Still, so
My
how to go
revision
about that?
strategy.
Straight.
So when it came to very important books like Lakshmikant's Spectrum, I did not make notes out of them, because I would underline them in the book itself, and I would only focus on those things. And then I would close the book and recall just 3 words from the entire page. So it's a more active recall strategy than revising every content. So do not go to every topic, every sentence, and then mug up. It's not a mugging up practice. It's a revision strategy. Revision means you do not need paper to recall. So close your eyes and assimilate whatever you have done. I could do this because I had not made ready-made notes. Now, do you have bulkier notes which is making it tougher for you to revise? Is that the problem? Or is it tough to recall a concept? Yes. You did not revise only. Yeah. That also happens. See, active recall generally means if I ask you something about a topic, you should tell me 3-4 associated words, that's all. You don't have to frame very nice sentences and give concepts like that. Conceptual clarity hoti hai ki you are associating one concept with a word, that's all. So if you're not able to recall in the mock test, you have to start thinking, is it because you are in pressure? Were you not focusing very well when you were revising? No, that's also a problem. Maybe while we are studying physically, are things even going inside our brains? That's also something you have to think. So maybe focus a bit more when you're studying, and then when you're giving mocks, please write it down. In the mocks, I studied this, but this is the act, or this is the something. So make a note of it, and then try to recall again. आप active recall कैसे करते हैं? Mm-hmm. And you again write it down? Okay. sometimes what happens is, if you have a habit of writing all the time, your brain starts to think less also. I had this problem in my attempts because I like to write and understand things, but if I'm not closing my mind and thinking, अगर आप बोल दो किसी को या आप लिख दो, it doesn't become your own. So try to do this practice. Maybe sit, have a flashcard and think of 3-4 topics in your mind. Do this for some time and see if it works. If it doesn't work, think of some other solution. But I had the same problem because if I kept writing, I wasn't able to reproduce it very well in the real examination. Do you get what I'm saying? Sometimes when you say something to someone or you write it down, it doesn't become your own after that. So try to sit and assimilate a bit more in a meditative manner. Try to do that. Yes? Yes.
But in my case, I have classroom notes.
Yes.
On a page, there are a lot of things that
Yes.
are important.
Yes.
So how to go about it on that active recall part, on a page or a notebook?
Okay.
You have a lot of important content.
Okay.
How to
So
revise
when you have classroom notes, some things are more important than the others. So maybe if you haven't compiled shorter notes, what you can do is take a highlighter and just underline the keywords. Okay. And then write just the keywords in a separate paper. You cannot revise from start to finish in classroom notes because you have a lot of things there and it's very tough for you to even anticipate the paper. So what you can do is write the keywords in a separate sheet. I would do that generally when I had very bulky notes for something. I would just underline, these are the words I have to recall, and I would write it separately in a separate book. You cannot make smaller notes because I don't think you should waste time doing that, but please just write the keywords at least separately. Quickly skim through your class notes. You can do that. Anyone else? Maybe you've given mocks now, or you want to know how to schedule your CSAT papers, or you have a worry about something. How to analyze your mocks? Yes. So there could be different types of errors in your mocks. Maybe you make a careless mistake, you cannot recall something, or you don't know something. So always, maybe you can have a spreadsheet like system and you make columns on this. What mistake have I made for which subject? If it's a revision problem, you have to go back and revise again. If it's a thinking problem, it means you will know it yourself, right? When you see a question in prelims, you have so much information coming from everywhere, but you can't decide which information is important and not important. Does that make sense? Like when you see a question, you know so much about so many things, you cannot clearly get that thought out कि मुझे क्या apply करके answer निकालना है. And that's where mocks come in. It is not about content, it is not about marks. It's about removing the noisy information that you have and only picking up what you need for that question. And PYQs help you for that. Areas of focus you will know from that. And this is how you can check your mocks. Does that make sense? Like when you don't know the right answer, you won't know at that point. You can check that later. But what information are you using for that question is the most important thing. That's one way to analyze. Second thing is careless mistakes. You should always make a note of them. And number 3, always have a nice small diary on the side that says, this is the mistake I made for this question. This is my weak point. You can segregate it subject-wise and you can analyze it this way also. Does that make sense? Like, is it a bit clear how you should analyze? See, it's a very difficult question because this year the prelims cutoff has dropped by a lot. But if you're scoring 45% and above, please don't worry so much at all. I know a lot of people say 100 aa gaya, I'm going to score very well in my exam, but really that's not the best way to measure. If in any of my mocks I had got 45, at least 50% more, then I would have thought it's a good paper. But agar aapka 45 se kam aa raha hai, then maybe you made careless mistakes also, and that you can recover. But cutoff is decreasing so much, so don't be very much particular about the scores. Maintain 40%, I would say that. In paper 1, what question you should leave? You should leave questions where you cannot eliminate even one option. A, B, C, D, just something A, B, C, D, you might want to not do that because you cannot differentiate these two. If it's a sentence question 1 to 3 sentences and then ABCD, you can deduct something from this and you might want to attempt that. So try not to leave statement questions from the exam. But if it is like what he said, find the odd one out, just ABCD 4 things, leave it, because you cannot don't do random guesswork in the exam. But you should always attempt your static portions. And then it's a spectrum. Something in the middle will help you, something in the middle you can't. But I would suggest PYQ based themes, always attempt them. Statement questions, don't leave them. And leave out the ABCD. So some history has descriptive questions like that. I wouldn't do them generally because I can't deduce. Okay. Hello.
When I initially started giving mock, so I saw that many of the questions I am doing wrong, not because of knowledge deficit, but because of focus deficit. Means I read the question wrong, or it is written food chain. In my mind, I read food web and made the question wrong. So in successive mocks, I focused on reducing that. I focus more on precision rather than attempts. So now the habit has become that I don't take risks. Even I am aware of that topic, I don't attempt that. Means if I'm not sure, then I leave that.
So you become more risk averse because you were being too focused on things. So like what I was telling her, when you see food chain, everything about Shankar book will come to your mind, right? You won't know which information to do. But being risk averse in the exam will not benefit you at all, because you need to do at least 75-80 questions plus, and you have to overcome that. Everyone is a risk taker in the examination. Nobody in the preparation will know more than 30 questions exactly. So you have to become risk averse in the exam. But risk averse is not guessing random things. It's not being careless, and it's not being very careless in this exam. Risk means you are confident of your thought process to reach the answer for that. When I would do a question in my successful attempts, I always made it a point that from point A, the thought of the question till the answer, I had a valid reason to go there. So I would never think, oh, my first 2 steps are okay, I'll just mark something and come. That's where you go wrong. So you need to have a thought process from your first step until you're bubbling something. Agar aapko kuch bhi nahi pata chal raha, even the last steps, then that is where you take a risk in the final step. But you need to become risk averse. Please spend these 40 days doing good amount of mocks and getting a grip of your strong points. Then you're reducing careless mistakes. Okay. Yes? Yeah. Yes. Yes, okay. So I got it. So he's saying, So what he's saying is very valid. He said when he starts with the first 10 questions and he doesn't know them, then panic sets in. That's such a valid response. And by the time you reach 80, 100-ish, 80 you get, yeah, yeah. You get a bit fatigued. So this is where I'm saying your mocks and your approach is very important. Always in the paper, they are subjectively arranged, like polity is together, environment is together, history is together. I'm sure you've noticed a lot of this, right? So chase that. Go to the polity section immediately and mark your questions. I would always do this. I would see the question paper and just skim very quickly to polity and mark the 5-6 polity, and then go to history, mark the 5-6 history. So that way you get very small triumphs in the exam that, okay, I'm doing very well. And that way you keep the dopamine running and you won't feel the sort of fatigue. Because in this exam, if one question stresses you out, oh, I studied this so many years back, I can't recall, oh, why did I not do this? It will percolate to the next questions. And this is why your mindset should be very good. So to solve this, I would suggest you please chase important topics, static generally, polity, history and whatever, and then mark them in 45 minutes. And then start seeing which section is a bit easier for me to guess now in. Keep up that stamina in your mocks. Try to actively practice that now, but don't go from 1 to 80, one after the other. It can get a bit difficult to do that. Okay, like fractional orbital, that sort of question. So like he was asking what are the questions you should leave. In general, when you have a question like this, underline every keyword in the exam. In recent news, fractional, orbital. So which option is matching everything? Nobody, maybe a lot of people wouldn't know the exact answer. But हर question, हर word को आप circle कीजिएगा और फिर सोचिएगा. Option A में है ये भी, then you tick A. I think A में नहीं था, and then you go to B and you put fractional, orbit ये भी है, then you tick it. It's a matter of deduction. That is it. You should not start thinking what could be the answer. The answer is in front of you. Take the keywords and then start matching. Do keyword matching with your options. Yes?
What you suggested to start from polity questions or to start
yeah,
from
whatever is
economy
strong
questions.
for you.
Yes, ma'am. But ma'am, I tried doing that, but what happens is like if I followed that approach, then I'm unable to track time. Like
Really? Okay.
if I have done 20 questions, I'm at this particular moment.
So let's don't count the number of questions you have done. In 45 to 50 minutes, you should have done static syllabus. This was my rule. So if you go match polity, why do you think it's taking time for you? Because you're not able to recall the polity questions?
I'm not able to track time. Like if I'm going from first question, I know that in half an hour I have to do 50 questions. Like for 1 hour I have to do my first iteration if that is my approach.
Okay.
So if I am like doing the paper from mid, like if I'm doing polity, economy, then I'll not be able to track time. That was the problem I was facing if I was doing the
So it's a
paper
time
from mid.
management problem.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, ma'am.
So if you cannot manage time in the exam, it becomes very hard for you. I would see the clock and the paper very simultaneously. And I would say if I'm spending more than 2 minutes on something, I'm going to move on a bit. But with static questions, this was not a major problem because you know the answer and you can bubble quickly. So my point is maybe your time management is a bit off. Don't lose sight of the clock at all. Don't bear it here. Keep it on the paper. These are the small things you can make, the changes you can make. So if you, okay, it's 901, 905, I'm still on the same page, it's not a good thing, right? On a page where you don't know anything, you're wasting 4 minutes in these sort of questions. So time every minute of yours and then see what strategy you can cook up. This is what I would do. My watch would always be open.
Ma'am, given the nature of 2023 paper,
Yeah.
like every question was like a lot of statements and it was a long question. Every question was too long. So even in that, you were able to do like 3 iterations.
Yes, I did not change anything about my paper. So I quickly skimmed. I would do polity and whatever I knew, I would do these questions immediately. Second, in this paper, I think I've taken 4 or 5 iterations because it was not easy this time. And you had to go riskier as time went by, and I would not mark a question until I'm completely convinced that my thought process is okay, even if you have done first or second or third iteration. So it was not 3 this year, it was at least 4 or 5. Because I did, I think 10 questions which I could do in this year's attempt because we had very few on modern history. So I would bubble this and then I went. I saw a couple of them which are a bit simpler, something on rivers, on jackfruit, that orangutan, some questions I thought I could do. So I did that immediately. I think generally I would have done 50 in my second iteration. This time it was about 22 or something like that. And again, I had to go again and do it in iterations. So this way I managed my time and I knew I'm leaving questions I don't know at all. Like map questions, I needed more time to think, but I knew the maps very well. So I would do it in my second iteration because I had more confidence than some other third iteration weird question. So you see what I'm trying to say? Like you can do multiple iterations. There is no short rule that you have to do 50 in 1 hour and 50 in the next. This is not the way to solve the prelims paper that's coming these days.
Like number of questions that you attempted this year?
This year must have been above 80, 85. I can't recall, but it was above 85 because I knew it's a very risky. I had to take more risk with this paper.
Ma'am, what was your mindset like between the GS and the CSAT paper? Because after GS, I thought that
You had what was gone?
Yes, but after CSAT, I realized that I'm gone because of CSAT.
Oh no. So see, that's the point. The 2 hours between the 2 papers, you have to be very happy. You have to forget what has happened in prelims. If it's tough for you, it's tough for everyone else. So in this exam, disassociate yourself from your own judgment about what you have done. Exam के बीच में भी नहीं करना कि ये आंसर अच्छा नहीं लिखा मैंने तो ये भी नहीं होगा. Just forget judgment. You cannot predict what's going on. I saw the paper. I was a bit shocked that it's this sort of paper when I was starting. After I finished, I said, अब हो गया, मैं कुछ कर नहीं सकती, and I just went on, ate lunch and came back. Just maintain a very impersonal relationship with the paper once you finished everything, mains bhi or prelims bhi. It is not going to help you at all. Only your mindset is so crucial for all the papers that you write from now. Okay, just have lunch, be happy, don't focus on anything else.
So ma'am, my question is related to basically mindset on the day of paper. So when I'm writing my mocks, I know it's a mock paper. If I do bad, it's not like मेरा एक साल खराब हो जाएगा. But on the day of prelims, I know if I mark one question wrong, it can cost me a year. And I remember 2023 exam, the anxiety was so much, I was scared to even bubble.
Yeah.
So
Real exam is very different from mock.
So I don't know how to, like, again, जब paper होगा, how do I deal with it? I don't want to do
you know what
the
the best
same
solution is? Since you have been through the exam once, you have a lot of experience compared to first timers. But second thing is, since you have given an anxious attempt already, you will already have had latent learning throughout this 1 year. You get what I'm saying? आपका experience है जो अच्छा नहीं गया, but this time it may not be the same because you are prepared for what has happened last time. This is how we grow in life, right? Like you have incremental movements. You fall sometimes and then you can walk better the next time. So don't worry. The toughest, hopefully the prelims has gone behind and you had an anxious attempt or whatever, but now it will not be the same because you have experience and you will tell yourself, I had a bubbling fear, this time I will not have that fear at all. You have nothing to lose. You studied for a year and you will definitely clear it this time. Okay, welcome. Yes? So when you have, so he's asking when you've eliminated two options are remaining, then there will be some difference between the two. Worst case scenario, last iteration mein kuch bhi nahi pata chal raha, then you can do calculative risks. If you have had two options for at least 20 questions, does it make sense? You risk only at the last stage, but there should be something to differentiate between the two. If you've differentiated between the two, examiner has also hidden something in the question. तो आप उसको ढूंढ के देखिएगा. It differs from question to question, right? So I think you will have to see what has been hidden in that question. Sometimes it's very hard to find the solution and you will go very crazy in the exam. करना क्या है? But if you have eliminated two, always attempt it and come. They're going wrong, then it's a thought process problem. It's a thought process problem. The day before the exam? You couldn't sleep. Does everyone have this problem? A day before the exam, you get anxious. So if you know, who is very confident before the exam and they're saying, मैं बहुत अच्छे से करके आऊँगा फिर. Really? Apart from him? So again, the point is, if you are anxious, everyone is also anxious about the exam. Right? Especially after last year's paper, maybe people are even more fearful. But you need to trust your preparation. That is it. कि आपके 2 घंटे you owe it to yourself to not have anxiety, stress about results, stress about past failures. 2 hours give yourself without any issue of this sort. You have to train your mind. An activity I saw online is also when people visualize the worst that can go wrong. You've all read Stoicism, have come across Stoicism as a philosophy. You've heard it somewhere? So Stoicism basically teaches you how to maintain equanimity or stability no matter what happens in life. So they say, for some people, when they visualize the worst that's about to happen, paper dikh ke dar gaya, samajh nahi aa raha, what is Jhelum, what is this animal, what's going on. If you visualize the worst, you're a little more prepared also. It's called negative visualization. So, but always tell yourself that you've prepared for a year, you've done PYQs, you've practiced very well, you can do things much better. It's very easy to say, but I hope you sleep well. Anyone else? Yes?
This, like how we can manage mental health, like in between these 40 days, or like sometime even after doing full day study or anything, I lack sense of satisfaction and create a circle of self-doubt.
Yeah.
So how?
There is a lot of self-doubt in the exam because you fear the failure. Competition is massive. and you feel like things are getting so hard. Patience bhi nahi hoti. All the negative things can happen right before the examination. But let me tell you, in this exam, you control a lot of things and you don't control a lot of things. What you cannot control is your competition, the question paper, the ranks, the people ahead of you who have done better. तो आप ये control कर ही नहीं सकते. आपका result you cannot control. But you can control your good habits, your emotional intelligence and your confidence. Right? तो सारा दिन पढ़ के डाउट रहता है कि मैं कर रही हूँ या नहीं, बट यू शुड ऑलवेज रिमेंबर, एंड आई रोट इट इन माई रूम, द कोटेशन सेड, डू दाई ड्यूटी एंड रिवॉर्ड इज नॉट दाई कंसर्न. Do thy duty, do your duty, and reward is not thy concern. I think Krishna says this in the Mahabharata, in the Gita. It's a Gita philosophy. So this is something, you don't just quote an essay, but you should assimilate what you're feeling. Just do your duty. If it doesn't happen, it wasn't meant to be. If it happens, then be thankful. That's all. So you can always do it. There's no secret that so-called toppers are doing more than aspirants, right? There's nothing of that sort. But good confidence and maintaining good habits can always take you forward. So focus on the process, don't think about the result at all.
On any themes. Rather, we have knowledge on most of the topics.
Yeah.
But every next time, the question that we are getting will be around the same topic, but new statements are coming. You talked about cutting the clutter and thinking on the right tangent.
Yes.
But the problem that mainly arises, at least in case of me, is that the number of tangents come in, and I think that deviates me from the correct answer. And specifically, it creates problem in 50-50, and when I've eliminated one and three options. How did you deal with this problem?
So in my 2020 attempt, it was only a cluttered brain because I didn't know how to anticipate and all of that. But after 2020, I think I removed so many sources and just threw all the notes away. So the point is, I was repeating again about conceptual clarity. There is always one associated concept with some amount of themes, and only focus on that. See, now that hint you get from PYQs, and that's what you have to apply. For example, they have asked you on indigo plantations before. So you need to know that railways did not happen before 1850, sorry. So the point is that there's always a conceptual clarity. PYQs dete hain aapko. Don't go around so many books to get more than that. Get what I'm saying? So even if they ask you the same question in different ways, only try to map that PYQ to that concept. It's an A to B correlation. Does it make sense, what I'm saying? If you see the PYQs, they ask you some question, let's say on agriculture. They're asking you permafrost agriculture. There's a permaculture, sorry. And there was another conventional agriculture. So they're comparing two different things. So you should know that conventional agriculture is not very nice these days. There's a lot of carbon emission. So that's the concept you need to have alone. So whatever question they ask on conventional agriculture, you will remember that this is a negative concept. And that's how simplistic you should associate a keyword with a concept. Does it make a little sense? Sorry, repeat that.
Overthinking on a particular line and thinking on superficial lines.
Yes, see, overthinking conventional agriculture in UPSC would be, oh, but India is doing so well in the food basket, agriculture is very good, farmers are all this. So this is not the question. UPSC will ask you things on better agricultural technologies. So conventional agriculture will have its flaws. Carbon emission, sugarcane is water crop. We get questions like this. So always keep that clarity and don't beat about the bush on other topics. There's so much content online, you will get distracted. But focus on PYQs and keep that lens very narrow. Does it make sense to you? Anyone else?
Ma'am, can we skip doing the solutions part of mock test? The content
usually
part.
the mock test, they embolden a couple of points, right? They embolden the 3-4 points. So I would focus only on that and only on the questions I made a mistake in my thinking. Does it make sense to you? कुछ वो lines bold कर देते हैं ना, जो भी statements आती हैं उसको वो embolden कर देते हैं, तो सिर्फ उसको देखिएगा. Don't see the whole question PDF. It'll be 60-70 pages if I'm not wrong.
I'm asking this because it takes a lot of time to do the solution part and adding it to the notes. and
Oh,
ultimately
no,
the
no,
use
no.
value is very, very minimal.
No. So in my first attempt, I did so many mocks. I had a lot of content from the mocks in my notes, but that did not help me because the mocks, the same question is not being repeated and it's not a knowledge exam. But when you see a statement question, uske solution mein they will bold in the 3-4 statements. If it has gone wrong, just make a note of that content alone and don't write the other frills at all. Does it make sense?
But also, like, I had tried this, the recent mock test which I had given. I thought that I'll not do the solution main part, I'll just do the important things. So I'd seen the PYQs. Based on that, I thought I'll do this. But the mock seems that all the questions are somewhere linked to the PYQs. कहीं ना कहीं theme से linked है. जैसे species पूछ लिया. So everything seems important at least वहाँ पे. So that how do we? So either I should skip completely.
No.
अगर मैं उसको पकड़ रहा हूँ तो everything feels important.
See, in the you will feel like everything is important in the exam. All sources, all textbooks, everything. But you, अगर आपकी गलती उसमें नहीं है species में, तो don't see the species, because you will be adding extra 4-5 animals for no reason, because your mocks are not to collect content alone, is to check your mistakes. So सिर्फ thought process को देखिएगा. Even if species का question गलत नहीं हुआ तो उसको मत देखिएगा, is what I'm trying to say. Don't add that content. Just revise, but don't add that content. But I spend time analyzing why you went wrong and how you can improve further. See, in general, I did not do this at all. I also did not measure my performance based on how many questions were right and wrong. So, आप ऐसा कर सकते हैं कि you should have quote unquote 100% accuracy in polity, for example. On some polity questions are also becoming harder, but you should not go wrong in important static questions. President's election, parliament chapter, fundamental rights, TPSP, इसमें आपकी accuracy 100 होनी चाहिए. Does it make sense? में मॉडर्न हिस्ट्री का जो टॉपिक आ गया, ट्राइबल रिवोल्ट्स का पूछ लिया, चार्टर एक्ट अगर आ गया, इसमें यू कैन नॉट गो रॉन्ग. रेवोल्यूशनरी पे आया था क्वेश्चन, रास बिहारी बोस पे, सो यू कैन नॉट गो रॉन्ग इन सच क्वेश्चन. उसमें इट हैज़ टू बी 100. बट एनवायरनमेंट जैसे साइंस एंड टेक या करंट अफेयर्स का आ गया, अगर आपका एक्यूरेसी ऊपर नीचे जा रहा है, यू कांट प्रेडिक्ट इट एट ऑल, बिकॉज द रियल एग्जाम ऑल्सो दीज टॉपिक्स आर डायनामिक. सो स्टैटिक में अगर आपकी एक्यूरेसी बहुत कम है, यू हैव टू रिवाइज अ लॉट. It should be as high as possible because that's your first iteration. Short questions. कुछ follow है पे आपका इस question पे? Does it make sense?
अपन ने ऐसे क्वेश्चंस आपके साथ, मतलब अगर आपने ऐसा कोई पैटर्न फॉलो किया हो इसमें, तो कितना आप मार्क करते थे ऐसे क्वेश्चंस को? उनमें क्या आपका कोई ऐसा पैटर्न डिड्यूस हुआ था कि कितनी % एक्यूरेसी आ जाती थी, तो वही एक्चुअल एग्जामिनेशन के दिन भी फॉलो हुआ हो?
I did not deduce this pattern at all. I did not find a pattern. I would give a mock, see my mistakes and not repeat the same mistakes. That's all. So अगर आपकी strategy काम कर रही है तो please do it, but please keep your strategy very simple. Don't try to be very mathematical, analytical in the exam right now. तो बस revise करो static का, और अपना जो वो syllabus है, keep that accuracy very high. But I did not do the pattern sort of thing. Yes?
PYQs. Did you do? I mean, how many mocks did you give for CSAT?
So I did the previous year question papers, I think since 2013, and that's what I had done. And I did find like a workbook online just for mathematics. So I was doing those practice questions at home. So that's what I had done. But the many mocks you give which are not discouraging is good for you, but if your maths is weak, then keep going ahead with it. But don't give 40 mocks on 40 days. You'll get very fatigued by the end of it. And since my exam cycle has been erratic, I had so much time for first attempt and just 3 days in my this attempt, so I cannot tell you by number, but doing PYQs, focus on that first. I think coaching classes also have a lot of mocks, so I think in the coming days at least try 10 maybe if you have the time. Take 2 hours and do it if you are weak in CSAT. In 23 attempt, I haven't seen my prelim scores very well, but I think generally, if I did about 90 questions, I would try to do 60 plus correct. So that is a general trend that you can maintain. Given the present pattern, which is a little difficult to eliminate, maybe 58, you can go down to that line. But the cutoff decreases for everyone equally, so don't worry about it. But 60-30, it would be a nice day for me if I gave that mock. So after you give your prelims, don't waste your time checking so many keys. Like I was telling her, your destiny is already set. So don't think about what's going to happen. Take 2-3 days of very good break. Go out with friends, eat what you haven't eaten, sleep very well, and then just dive into mains. It will happen. I'm sure you've got good preparation so far. But anyone else has any other problem with your, maybe you've given too many attempts, you're doubting this year, maybe you want me to tell you something a bit about the exam, what I have learned. So, yes?
A lot of other things.
Can you do that in UPSC? I was a very boring person, my mom. But I think if you are a person who loves the process, you're reading NCRTs and then you envisage yourself as an officer, doing that applied on the field, that's one way that I thought the process helped me. I knew what I'm studying, I'm going to apply tomorrow in the field, and I knew someday mera ho jayega. Maybe others weren't convinced, but I knew I could do it. So that is a conviction you should have, imagining yourself doing inspection on the field or doing something that way. But having said that, I wouldn't say study 24 hours a day. Good habits, get good sleep, maybe do physical activity. I think as my attempts went on, I took up boxing, which was very cathartic. So you can take up a physical activity, maybe go twice a day, and pick up a hobby which will not take your focus away from studies. Like I started doing cubing because I knew I could spend half an hour doing something intellectually different and then going back to it. So maybe you can try cubing. I know people who do origami, who like to do penmanship, maybe video games. I think will be too immersive, but depending on how disciplined you are, you can do it. So try to have a hobby that helps you go back to studies, and maybe do physical activity twice a week if you can. But your mental health and process loving is most important in the exam. Yes?
You were giving your understanding of the questions through conventional agriculture and permaculture questions a while back. Could you please elaborate more on that with a few more examples if possible?
Okay, let's think of a question on pollution, for example. Let's go back to this question only. So there were two options in this question, permaculture and conventional agriculture. Now I started thinking based on PYQs that maybe in some statement the differences are interchanged. And I did find that in my third option, I think. They said permaculture is good, so is bad, easily possible, or something like that. So there was some interchange. So I was able to deduce in this way. Also, there's a question on pollution, for example. You know, there are so many pollutants. Can you sit and remember everything in the exam? And generally, some things have a lot of pollutants. So I would not spend so much time in that, and I would go ahead with it. But let's talk about this question 2021 on solar winds or something like that. They said tsunamis happen with solar winds. Now, will you choose an option like that in the exam? Is there any relation to solar winds and tsunami? So I did not read option, the 6-7 statements. I didn't read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I saw tsunami immediately. I said, this is an option which cannot come. I removed 3 or jo bhi tha usme, and I was left with 2 options. So this is a sort of smart work you have to do in the examination. You are not expected to study every statement and then think, is it right or wrong? No, start eliminating things first. And then you are left with 2, and then you can choose one at the end of it. Is it clarifying a bit of what you're asking? If there was a question on blockchain, I think in 2020, they said that blockchain can be done without anyone's permission or something like that. 2020 ka question tha ye, there was a statement, and it is true. Blockchain is a new technology. It has a lot of applications. So that option has to be in my answer. And this is how I would go about my prelims. I couldn't do it also because in 2021, my first successful prelims, my biggest demon was prelims. I did not know if I could clear or not. I think I was a lot like this. Prelims was not coming in my way, but it has happened to me. And don't worry, prelims ho jayega is saal. You've done a good preparation, asking the right doubts. I can tell that the right path. Thank you so much for giving me your time, and just remember in the exams to keep very low expectations from results. Please don't get lost in this cacophony of topper, notes, this, that, kitna competitive hai, kitne percentile mein 0.1 successful hote hain. This is utter rubbish. You don't have to worry about this at all. If you work hard, you get it. But you have many ways to succeed in life despite this. But just stick to your basics. 40 days mein static karo, PYQ karo, khush raho, and just do these things. All the best, everyone. You can reach out to me through Ayush sir. Maybe if you have specific doubts, I'll try to always get back to you. Bye, everyone. Good evening.